So it is now my distinct honor to welcome Stevie Lynn Smith. So Stevie is a content strategist and team nutritionist at InsideTracker. As a registered dietitian, board certified in sports nutrition and Ironman triathlete, she enjoys combining her passions to help educate others on how to fuel for overall health and performance. When she's not swimming, biking, or running with her dog, you'll find her in the kitchen working on a new recipe to improve her biomarkers. Stevie is wonderful, and I can't wait for you all to hear her wonderful scientific-backed information to share tonight. And before I turn it over to Stevie, I'd like to also introduce you to our other co-host tonight, food blogger Mariana Moore. So Mariana Moore is a marketing intern at InsideTracker, and she's also a graduate student at Tufts University, Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. As a nutrition science graduate student and certified strength and conditioning coach, she's also got a bachelor's degree in exercise science. She has a passion for helping others lead a healthier lifestyle and improve their overall quality of life. When she's not studying or working, she can be found in the kitchen creating new recipes for her food blog, tending to her plants, reading, or at the gym. And tonight, we're also going to have the honor to have Mariana show us 2 delicious recipes that are going to help improve biomarkers and also boost our mood. So now it is my honor to turn it over to Stevie, who's going to take it away and share with us how food actually impacts our mood.
Hi there. Thanks so much, Kaylee. And thank you for joining us. We're super glad to have you here. And as Kaylee said, what an important topic, especially with 2020. Also, as we head into the winter, the days are darker. And, let's really dive into how our mood impacts our food choices. Food choices, of course, are influenced by many factors, both internal and external. But what we choose to eat and when we choose to eat it, how we choose to eat it, etc., does in fact impact our mood. I think all of us can raise our hand and say that we've reached for X, Y, or Z food when we're feeling stressed, or maybe an onset of emotions. Maybe we're feeling anxious. So first of all, it's okay to feel these things, but overall, we want to see how our food choices can really help us to improve our mood. So personally, first off, as a dietitian and an athlete, food is my favorite thing. Second to my dog, maybe. But it really has become such an important thing in my lifestyle, supporting my athletic endeavors as an Ironman athlete, but also to support my health and well-being. Training for an Ironman is a lot of work. If you've ever been there or even experienced someone who's undertaken Ironman training or really any sort of rigorous athletic goal, it's important to make our food choices to fuel what I like to call our feats of strength, but also making sure that our food choices are supporting that, our health, but also our mood. It can be very common for athletes to very unintentionally underfuel. So along with that, besides the negative effects of underfueling, it is not going to improve performance. It's going to put people into this kind of like training hole of overtraining, being overstressed. So if we can, find the way to eat foods to make us feel better when we're training, we're recovering better in workouts, is kind of one of the factors that has been very important in my own kind of personal experience of being like, oh, I'm fueled, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to take on my day, work, school, and then my training as well. So, it's kind of one of those very overarching things, but fueling our training and our lifestyle is super important to keep us happy and healthy. So, kind of what I was mentioning previously in my story is I know a lot of athletes who get hangry. And this can happen to anyone. Even if you aren't training for an Ironman, again, everybody guilty as charged. You've experienced hunger. It's a mix of hunger and anger. Probably not the most scientific term, but I couldn't not have it in here. You don't this can happen when our blood sugars are low, if we're not eating enough or not eating consistently, again, to support our activities, whether it's training for a race or just having a really busy lifestyle with family, work, etc. So we want to avoid hanger, and kind of that's also a place where we can kind of make some knee jerk reactions with our food choices. Um, and going away from hanger, we can talk a little bit more about um, how, when we're eating, how the gut is referred to as kind of like the second brain, and it produces many of the same neurochemicals that the brain uses to regulate mood and cognition, more on the scientific side of things. So, just as an example, 95% of serotonin is produced by our gut bacteria. And serotonin is often known as the happy chemical. It contributes to overall wellness and happiness and helps to balance mood and anxiety. Um, it also serves as a precursor to melatonin, the hormone that helps us fall asleep. So, really not surprised that low levels of serotonin have been linked to poor mood, anxiety, and irregular sleep. So these acute, looking at the slide here, at acute mood boosting foods, again, there is nothing wrong with having a bad day and being like, I'm going to have a cookie, I'm going to get an ice cream cone, whatever those foods are, whether you're a sweet or a savory person, um, you get that quick kind of hit of like, oh, okay, like I feel better. Your mood is improved. And it's okay to lean into those foods sometimes, but we want to overall look at our diets and be, optimizing our intake to see how we can have an overall mood boost throughout all of our days. So, okay to lean into those comfort foods, but we don't only want to rely on those comfort foods to kind of increase our mood boost. So, looking at more of a chronic sustainable mood boost is what we're going to be talking about a little bit more today. So I talked, oh, I already hit up on the comfort food. I'm skipping ahead of myself here. But will food always help to improve your mood? It's definitely very hard to sit here and guarantee that it's always going to be improving your mood, but it definitely is going to help if we're focusing on, as I mentioned previously, looking at how we can kind of create this chronic mood boost of foods. How can we kind of pattern our intake and our eating to give us more of a sustainable overall sense of well-being? I know I mentioned, gut health and the gut being the second brain. There are thankfully several foods that can stimulate our gut health. Specifically when provided with sufficient fiber, anti-inflammatory bacteria, they will produce byproducts that are beneficial for proper brain functioning. So there's a lot that we can do with our diet. One of the big pieces of overall diet intake that can improve mood is the Mediterranean diet. Many of you may be familiar with it. It's been shown that following the Mediterranean diet eating pattern is associated with better psychological well-being. And there's a number of factors that play into this. If you're not familiar, the Mediterranean diet really focuses on veggies, fruits, nuts, beans, whole grains, herbs, and spices, and moderate amounts of dairy, poultry, eggs, and seafood, and really limits red meat. So most of the meals in the Mediterranean diet are really plant focused, which there has been research shown that higher levels of fruit and vegetable consumption increase levels of happiness in both adolescents and adults. And another study showed that increased consumptions of fruits and vegetables increase life satisfaction points equal to the gain of an individual moving from unemployment to employment. So that is huge, just having a few more fruits and vegetables during the day, making sure that you're consistently getting a variety of fruits and vegetables. And going back to kind of the fish and seafood aspect of the Mediterranean diet, fish and seafood consumption has appeared to be part of a piece in prevention against depression, seasonal affective disorder, bipolar depression, and postpartum depression. Um, Part of this is because of the omega-3 fats. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Um, but to heading over to the next slide, um, making sure that we're eating enough food throughout the day kind of seems like a no-brainer, but more often than not, as a dietitian, I see people, whether they're athletes or just very active individuals, um, not eating enough throughout their day and falling low on overall intake, calories, macronutrients, micronutrients. These low energy levels can create an excess of stress hormone production. So it's super important that we're eating enough and eating, consistent meals and snacks throughout the day. No one is ever perfect. We can't always time our meals and snacks at the same time. I also think it's important for people to, if you're a person who can rely on your hunger cues, that's great. There are a lot of people who are not able to rely on their hunger cues, which is fine. But when we're eating consistently throughout the day, that's when we're really sets us up as an individual to make sure that we're getting enough of, again, energy, macronutrients, and micronutrients throughout the day. So going to the next slide. Fermented foods. So now looking a little bit more closely at some different food sources that can definitely help to improve your food. So as I mentioned earlier, talking about gut health and how we can improve it, we can definitely do that with fermented food sources. They're a great source of probiotics. Always like to tell people that you don't always have to rush to a supplement for probiotics. You can get them from your food. We can improve our gut bacteria by increasing the quantity of probiotics, but also the diversity. And that's where these foods you see on the screen come in. They have live probiotics. Looking at kimchi, yogurt, sauerkraut, foods that a lot of people might feel a little uncomfortable eating or adding in. But I always encourage people to kind of, get outside of that comfort zone a little bit and see how we can increase these in your diet. Along with this, talking on the gut health portion, fiber is a prebiotic. So this, again, is an important piece of the puzzle. You can't just have all these probiotics. You also need prebiotics. Fiber passes undigested through our GI tract and serves as food for these good bacteria. These bacteria produces byproducts that will help to support proper brain functioning, also kind of that gut bacteria and diversity of bacteria. With ample fiber, the bacteria can nourish, thrive, and hinder the growth of unhealthy gut bacteria. So again, just want to really reiterate this point. You just can't sit there and only eat probiotics. You need to make sure you're getting a good sources of prebiotics from fiber, from different types of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, to kind of, again, find that balance. But the science is really great and interesting out there on this topic. In one triple-blinded, placebo-controlled, randomized control trial, participants took a probiotic food supplement, displayed less negative thoughts linked with sad mood. So there's a number of other studies done out there, but that's just one example I wanted to share. So a lot of good stuff with probiotics, prebiotics, fiber, getting those fermented foods in. And again, going back to your balanced diet there can definitely be helpful on keeping your gut and therefore your brain happy. Moving on to the next kind of piece of the puzzle, looking at what supplements you should take. Again, you can get probiotics from supplements. Would recommend a food first kind of approach. But vitamin D is one of the supplements. Again, recommend that you have your levels tested before you just start taking a vitamin D supplement. If you live in the Northeast, this time of year, it's very minimal sunlight, as we all know. So it would definitely be something that I would recommend you have your doctor check if you want to do kind of a do-it-yourself testing, or again, get your blood tested with us. Um, Sunlight, again, is the greatest source. Fatty fish, mushrooms, egg yolks, fortified milks are another source that you can get it through your diet. And vitamin D, looking a little bit more on our immune system and looking at how we can really support our immune health. It has a direct effect on the immune system. Studies have shown that people with optimal vitamin D concentrations are less likely to experience the common cold and other respiratory tract infections than those with low levels of vitamin D. And it is just one of those things that is also really important in bone health, as we all know, but specifically looking at our immune system, it can definitely help really kind of put you at a better place, especially this time of year, to be less susceptible to different types of infections and illnesses. So, moving to the next little supplement that we recommend is garlic. So, garlic has a number of antiviral properties. Garlic may activate immunity related genes and reduce the likelihood of an individual getting sick in the first place. It's also been used by many different cultures to fight infectious diseases due to its antimicrobial, antifungal, and antiviral properties. Modern studies have shown that incorporating garlic into your diet may actually activate immunity genes and reduce the severity and also the incidence of a cold. You can take this as a supplement. We recommend 2 500 milligram doses, or you can add some raw garlic clove to your meals. I don't know about you. I really like garlic, so you can catch me eating it in the clove form. And there are also a number of other supplements that you can include. And already talked about probiotics, but you can also add zinc, vitamin C, ginseng, and just as a little sidebar, we have a great blog that dives a little bit deeper into those supplements. But also, lastly, definitely want to talk about ashwagandha. If you are an InsideTracker user, you probably have heard us talk about this before. Our interest in ashwagandha was piqued due to its effect on cortisol levels, but it also has been used to combat anxiety, depression, insomnia, inflammation, and immunosuppression. It has a lot of uses. We like to refer to it as an adaptogen. So, an adaptogen, for those who might not know, is a substance that helps our body deal with the physical manifestations of stress, namely the hormonal response from our adrenal system. Unlike traditional drugs, adaptogens may not have a known molecular target, meaning their mechanism of action is not specifically known. So put that simple there. It seems that ashwagandha affects both the chicken and the egg cause of stress. Some research also suggests that ashwagandha directly inhibits the release of cortisol from the adrenals. So it may reduce our perception of stress, meaning that a really stressful event might happen. And if you're taking ashwagandha, it may not seem so bad. And again, looking at our immune health and our mood, managing stress is a really big piece of that. There are, just again, being an adaptogen, consult your doctor. If you do add it in, there are certain contraindications for ashwagandha. And, if you have tested with us at InsideTracker and you have elevated cortisol levels, we do recommend that you take 300 milligrams twice a day, once at breakfast, one at dinner, for 60 days. It has been shown to reduce cortisol levels by up to 27%. Again, something I wouldn't recommend people add in just kind of on the fly, but make sure you get your blood levels checked. We'll look at your cortisol levels. And that can be a major player in helping to reduce your stress and therefore help support a healthy and strong immune system. There's so many things that I could talk about on this topic. felt like I barely touched on gut health here, and even on our omega-3 fatty acids, which, going back to the Mediterranean diet, are very key in helping to improve our mood. But I don't want to hold Mariana up too much in the kitchen. I'm going to send it over to her, and she is going to make 2 really awesome recipes for you guys. And there you go.
Hi guys, thank you, Stevie. That was awesome. You just set the bar really high for me, so it's gonna be tough to follow up after that, but I'm so excited to come on and share some recipes with you guys and also share a little bit about my experience with food and how it's impacted my mood. So as Stevie mentioned, I am a marketing intern and I am also a food blogger, and contrary to popular belief, I haven't always been that interested in food. Really wasn't until I got to college and started studying exercise science that I realized how important proper nutrition was to your body. In high school, you could catch me sitting on the couch before volleyball practice with a bag of salt and vinegar chips. And then after my game, I would wonder why I felt so tired or lethargic, regardless of how hard I played or not. And then when I got to college, I was really into going to the gym, and I started overwhelming myself with classes, and I wanted to do everything all the time. And with that came a lack of time for properly fueling myself. So what I really started to notice was that I was always tired. I didn't really seem to have much room in my schedule to prepare a proper meal, which is something that you are not prepared for when you get to college. So I started to make it more of a priority to start nourishing my body and really meal prepping and just getting in those 3 meals, snacks a day after being so active, and also taking 6 courses and trying to volunteer and trying to make new friends. I feel like people don't put enough emphasis in college and as a student, and especially if you're an athlete, about how important it is to properly nourish your body. I did notice it took around a year for me to really notice the implications of my undernourishment and how tired I was and really stressed out I could be. And I noticed that once, lo and behold, I started to have proper meals and really make it a priority to eat enough food, that my energy was so much higher. I was really a lot more interested in being social and being just my energetic, exuberant self. And it wasn't until recently that I got retested with InsideTracker, and I also noticed that my cortisol levels were again through the roof. So with their recommendations and what I've been doing since then and in quarantine is really making an effort to not only properly nourish my body with those high fiber foods, a lot of the fermented foods, probiotics, but I was also making room for treats and little desserts and those comfort foods every day, because that really does help a lot. And I think emphasis on that is not as highlighted in the health and wellness realm, but I think, nothing beats a bar of dark chocolate or a bowl of ice cream every now and then. So I am gonna move over to these recipes. And first we're gonna start with a vegan chickpea burger. This is also gluten-free if you make it with gluten-free oats. If you are not worried about gluten, you can use whatever type of oatmeal you want. So this is different for me. I'm usually up on Instagram stories, talking with my phone in front of my face, so I feel much more professional here. I set up my mise en place, and I have all the ingredients ready to go. We're gonna switch on over to the recipe card. You guys can feel free to download this, take a screenshot, and I'm gonna move on to showing you how to make these burgers. I really wish I could make them as beautiful as that picture there, but I'm really gonna only have time to get to the patties, but you can feel free to dress these up however you want. I love to add avocado, tomato. There's also some kimchi relish on there for those good probiotics. Or you can just have them as is. I love to throw them on a salad as well. They're really great to meal prep. You can put them in the freezer, the fridge. So yeah, I'm gonna get on to it with you guys. So I have already added my chickpeas. I drained and rinsed them and popped them in my food processor. And then the first step that you wanna do, which is really important if you are making veggie burgers, is to cook your onions and garlic in a saute pan in 1 tablespoon of olive oil. This is very underrated, but the amount of flavor it brings out in the caramelization of the garlic and onion completely changes the flavor of any veggie burger. And I also want to note that you can also make this with black beans, kidney beans, whatever you have on hand will hold really well. I personally love the taste of chickpeas, and they also are really high in fiber, a good source of plant-based protein. And like Stevie was talking about, we have the onions and the garlic, which are a great source of probiotics and can also help improve that mood. So you're getting a little bit of everything here, and I'm gonna get going. So first we're gonna add the chickpeas to the food processor. If you do not have a food processor, you could use a high-speed blender. It might just take a little bit more scraping to get everything combined. And then I've also preheated my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've got my little baking sheet over here ready to go for when I do make the patties. And I am very organized right now, and I have all my ingredients set up. If that's not the way you work, that's usually not the way I work. That's all right, just add it as you go. So as I told you, I already got my cooked onions and garlic in here. And you wanna add those with the chickpeas first. And then you're gonna pulse them together until the chickpeas are just roughly broken down and the onion and garlic are well combined. When you are chopping up your onions and garlic to cook, don't worry about how small they are because you are gonna be pulsing them together with the chickpeas anyway. This might be a little loud. If you wanna turn down your volume, I apologize. So we're just gonna pulse it on high until they start to break down and form a crumbly texture. All right. So as you can see, it just started to curl up the sides, get nicely broken down there. That will make it easier once you start to add the rest of your ingredients. And I like to scrape down the sides in between stirring just to make sure everything is well combined. And the great thing about this recipe is you don't need to use any egg because the combination of the oats and the chickpeas, it makes a good binding agent so they do not fall apart when they're baked. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the oats, which is a 1/3 cup of oats. And then we're gonna add in a 1/2 cup of cilantro. If you do not like cilantro, don't even worry about it. I know for some people, it is not their favorite herb. I personally love it, but you can also use parsley, you could use basil. If you wanna just get some greens in there, you could use spinach. Whatever you want. That's the beauty of this recipe, it's extremely versatile. So I'm gonna give this another pulse just to make it easier and make sure everything's well combined. All right. And now my favorite part is adding in all of the herbs and spices. And I also love making vegan recipes because you could taste the batter. And you know we love to do a few taste tests in between while we're cooking, especially when I make the energy bites. Half the dough I usually will eat on my way to making the recipe. So next we're gonna add in some lemon juice. You could use fresh squeezed lemon if you just have the lemon juice concentrate is what I have right now. We're gonna go ahead and add in 2 tablespoons of this, or you could use roughly around like 1 lemon juiced. And this can also be to taste. If you think it needs more or less, you can go ahead and add that. I thought 2 tablespoons was just the right amount of acidity. And this is also awesome because lemons are really high in vitamin C. And it's the time of year we all wanna do everything we can to support that immune system. And that's also, this is adding fresh herbs is also a great way to get in a lot of micronutrients and vitamins, all of which are gonna really help your body be well nourished and energized for the cold winter months. So we're gonna go ahead and next add in some coconut aminos. So I do 1 tablespoon of coconut aminos. If you're not familiar with these, they're like a soy sauce alternative, but they're a little bit sweeter and they're lower in sodium. I personally love the taste they add to this recipe, but you could also go ahead and use tamari, soy sauce, whatever you have on hand. And just 1 tablespoon, we're gonna add in there. And then we're gonna do some salt and pepper. I have on the recipe a 1/2 teaspoon. I usually eyeball the salt levels. But if it is your first time making it, definitely measure it out. And then just some pepper to taste. And then we're gonna go ahead and add in some cumin. And cumin is kind of the taste that you get when you have a nice hummus. It's used in falafel, a lot of Mediterranean recipes. And then we're gonna go ahead and add in the dried thyme. You can also use fresh thyme if you wanted to. Let me just check and see how much I had here. Yeah, so I use 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. If you're gonna use fresh thyme, use like 2 sprigs. Make sure I've got everything. And I'm gonna press everything down before I go ahead and mix this together. And that's all the ingredients. And then you're just gonna blend it until it's nice and smooth. You may have to stop a few times halfway through to make sure it's nice and even and incorporated. If you do notice that your the dough is too moist, you can add in another tablespoon of oats. Stop and scrape down the sides a little bit more. And Stevie did also mention the Mediterranean diet, which this recipe is really great for incorporating a lot of the foundations of the Mediterranean diet. It's high in fiber, it's high in your good unsaturated fats from the olive oil. It's plant-based, it has herbs, spices, so this is a really good, quick and easy recipe if you are interested in eating more plant-based or following the Mediterranean diet. And it's also super satiating and satisfying because it is higher in protein and you do get the carbohydrates from the oats, and then you also get the good fats from the olive oil that you cooked the onions and garlic in. And now I'm gonna pulse this a little bit more. It's almost good, but I like to pulse it again just to make sure the oats are broken down and everything is well combined. All right, so that's perfect. I'm going to show you kind of a close-up of what the dough should look like, because you do not want it to be completely smooth or else it's going to crumble when you bake it. You want to have a few clumps left behind, and it's great to go bite into a burger and know what you're eating, and you could see the foods and nutrients. So that's what it's going to look like. You could still see a few cilantro bits, some chickpeas in there, and it's nice and sticky. I'm going to wash my hands one more time before I form them into balls, because we all know how important it is to wash your hands always. So this makes 4 large patties. If you wanted to make them into like smaller little balls, like chickpea balls, almost like falafel size, you can also do that, but I am going to be making patties. All right. So let's take out this. And for this, I kind of will take out just about the size of the palm of my hand. And you can see it's really nice because everything sticks together. It doesn't really stick too much to your hands, and you can form them in the shape that you like. So I am going to put them on my baking sheet here and spread them out evenly. And you don't want to completely press them down because these aren't going to spread out when you bake them. So you want to form them into the size that you would see a typical burger or veggie burger patty. And the thickness around, I would say, a ½ an inch to an inch thick is great. And again, like I said, if you do like more cumin, less cumin, if you want more salt, more pepper, you could taste as you go and add them to your taste preference. And if you did not have access to quick oats like the recipe says, what you could do beforehand is, if you just have plain old thick rolled oats, you could add them to the food processor and pulse them maybe for 10 seconds, and then they'll be the texture of quick cooking oats. The reason why I use quick oats is because they are finer and easier to blend in with the patties. So this is going to be 4. Just going to add a bit more dough to make them even and press them down on the pan. So these do cook for 20 minutes, and then you flip them halfway through at that 20-minute mark and cook them for another 20. So it's 40 minutes total. So I am going to make the other recipe while these bake. But we do have photos so you can kind of get a gauge of how they should look, and I'll be able to show you them halfway through. And I'll also post the finished product on Instagram when it's done. So that will help, but in the sake of time, I will not be able to make a beautifully constructed burger, but you can get the idea and add in whatever you like. All right. Wash my hands again. All right, so here is what they look like before they go in the oven. Little burgers, so I'm gonna pop them in at 400 and keep an eye on them for 20 minutes, and then we'll check on them halfway through. All right, so those are done for now, and I'm gonna move on to the sweet stuff. We are making gingerbread energy bites. These are one of my favorites. I love energy bites. I love adding them into my meal prep routine because they really help me if I'm feeling snacky, if I want something sweet, if I want a little boost of energy before a workout, so I don't find myself munching on a bunch of random things or forgetting to have something to eat. I found in college it was so important for me to prep little snacks like this to make sure that I always had something that was going to be high in a good source of fats, keep me satiated, carbohydrates. You could add protein to them, so you really can switch them up however you like. But because it is Christmas season, I decided to do a little gingerbread recipe for you guys. And yeah, so this is also going to be very customizable. You could look at this and you could take a screenshot and save the recipe. This is going to be a base of cashews and medjool dates. But to emphasize how versatile these recipes are for energy bites, I accidentally bought almonds. So I'm going to be using almonds instead of cashews. There really is not going to be much of a difference. They're going to add the same value, same nut. So you could use any nut you want, you have on hand. I do just like the flavor of cashews, especially when they're combined with the gingerbread spices. So I'm going to get started here. We're going to switch on over. I'm going to switch my appliances. Some 23-year-olds like to go out and buy clothes and shoes. I, however, buy appliances. So get this plugged in there. All right. This is just a high-speed blender. You could also use a food processor like I just had. You could use any type of blender you have. It's just gonna all depend on the power and how much time it's gonna take for everything to break down. With a nice high-speed blender, it doesn't take as long, especially with more coarse ingredients like almonds and dates. So here I am using pitted medjool dates, and I have 1 cup, and with your dates, you're gonna wanna pack them in. So not just a loose cup of dates, you wanna pack them in, get as many as you can in there. This is gonna be the base, and this is gonna be what holds everything together. This is also gonna be the sweetener of this recipe. So it is gonna be refined sugar-free. What that means is that there's not gonna be any added in cane sugar. It's coming from a whole source of food. It does not mean sugar-free. I feel like people often get that confused when recipes are labeled as refined sugar-free. There is still sugar, however, it's coming from a natural food source like dates. And dates are wonderful. They're really high in fiber, high in iron. And then we have our almonds. So if you do not have a high-speed blender, you're gonna wanna soak your dates in warm water for about half an hour, and then you're gonna drain them and add them to your blender, and this will just soften them up and make it a lot easier for them to blend. So I'm gonna add dates here. You can add, depending on your blender, you could do the almonds and the oats first. We also have a half a cup of oats, and we're gonna add those in. I'm just gonna pulse my dates a little bit first, and then I'm gonna add in the almonds and the oats just to allow them to break down a bit. So this is also gonna be a little bit loud, a lot louder than the last one. So again, I apologize. So what's awesome about this is you don't really have to scrape down the sides because it has this, whatever this is, I don't know the name of it, but this is probably one of my better investments as a young adult. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching this. And then I'm gonna add in the almonds. Also a great source of fats. I know there can tend to be some sort of stigma around fats, but they are great, especially for energizing you and for refueling and for keeping you satisfied. I love my nuts, my nut butters. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I am a big fan of the nut butters. All right, so I added in the oats and the almonds, and you're just gonna give that another pulse until they're broken down and blended in with the dates. And halfway through, you're going to want to scrape down the sides. And you'll notice that the oats and the almonds form a nice smooth powder, as you can see on top here. I'll just show you that. So this is kind of the powder consistency you'll get, almost like a coarse flour. And then you are going to want to scrape down the sides. 1 second. Because the dates are very sticky, so you are going to have to scrape them down to make sure that everything gets well combined. Like I said, you could do this separately. And do the almonds and the oats first, depending on the power of your blender. Just gonna make sure this is all scraped down. And this doesn't have to be completely combined because we are gonna blend it again once we add in the spices. And if you did not want to do oats, what's really awesome is you could sub this out with protein powder, and this will make it a higher protein source, and it will also just be a good binding agent as well. I would recommend using unflavored or vanilla is what I've used before. All right. It should be good. It's a marathon, not a sprint when you're making anything with dates because they're sticky. But it's worth it. All right. So now before I blend this again, I'm gonna add in the molasses. And molasses is really important for the flavor of gingerbread. Also, what is interesting, fun fact, I used to be a full vegan and I was very low in iron. And I would take a tablespoon of molasses every single morning because it's very high in iron. So if you're vegan and you're looking for a good source of iron and have access to molasses, go for it. I cannot tell you that I particularly enjoyed the taste of plain molasses. It is very strong, but I grew to be okay with it. And so did my iron levels enjoyed it as well. So we're gonna start with 1 tablespoon. Oh, I have 2 tablespoons on here, yes. Okay. 2 tablespoons of molasses. It is very sticky and thick, a little intimidating, but great for anything gingerbread. All right. And then I'm gonna add in the spices for the gingerbread flavor. A typical gingerbread spice mix is gonna be cinnamon, sea salt, ground clove, ginger, I believe that's it, and nutmeg. There's also, any generic store might have a gingerbread spice mix. If you have access to that and it's easier, you can also do that. If you do try the molasses thing though, and you don't like the taste of it, don't come for me because I warned you. The price we pay for health, right? No, you could just make the energy bites and get your molasses that way. All right, so I'm gonna blend this. I'm so sorry it's so loud, but now I'm gonna add my spices. I just wanted to get that molasses in there a little bit before. So we're gonna start with 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Grab out my measures. I love cinnamon, so I add a lot. If you wanna do just 1 teaspoon, totally fine. But it really matches well with the molasses and the dates. And then we're gonna go in and grab our nutmeg. And nutmeg is very strong, so I'm using a 4th teaspoon. Nutmeg and ground clove and ginger, a little goes a long way. So we have a 4th teaspoon of nutmeg, and we have how much ginger? We're also gonna do a 4th teaspoon of ginger. And for the ground clove, we're gonna do an 1/8 teaspoon. It's very strong and can be overpowering, so make sure that you do not do more than that. All right, and then we're also gonna add in a splash of vanilla extract. If you don't have it, it's not completely necessary. It just adds a nice flavor, especially if you're gonna use protein instead of oats. So just about a teaspoon there. Then you don't need the vanilla. And then we're gonna give this another blend until it forms a nice sticky dough. It's going to, if you're in your blender or food processor, it's gonna ball up into one big ball and be one big ball of sticky dough. And that's when you know it's done and you've done it right. So I'm gonna give this one more stir and get my arm workout in. So there you go. One more pulse, and you're gonna, anytime you are blending, you're gonna do it on the highest setting. Don't worry about the sound. I promise your blender will not break. It's just because it's sticky. All right, so. done, especially by the noise your blender makes, it'll just start to make like more of a humming noise. Where did I put that? And it'll be a nice sticky dough. So I'll show you guys the texture of it. Almost like a cookie dough, and it should stick together in your fingers like that. And once it's all together, you're gonna take it off and you're gonna roll them into, so this makes around 14 balls. I take around 2 tablespoons to form the balls and just put them on a plate. You can also, if you're gonna be storing them in an airtight jar, is preferred, and they can last up to a week in the fridge. And you can also put them in the freezer as well. But what I love about these is you don't have to bake them. You can refrigerate them for like 10 minutes to allow them to set, but you don't even have to do that. You can have them right away. Looks just like the picture. Wow, okay. Sometimes I feel like when you're making a recipe, I know this is my recipe, but sometimes I make up people's recipes and you look at it and you're like, this is not at all what the picture looks like. But it's, if the taste is there, it doesn't matter. But so this is what it'll look like. It's a nice energy bite, sticks together, flop them on the plate. And I'm gonna do roughly 14 of them. If you wanna make larger ones, you can make larger ones. I'll sometimes will make like 8 and have just 1 as a snack, or if I'm making 14, I'll have 2, whatever you wanna do. Yeah. And I'm checking the time because I'm gonna check on the burgers and I'm gonna give them a flip, and I'll also show you guys what they look like halfway through. I don't need to bore you with rolling these. I think you understand the gist. They're also, you can roll them in coconut shreds. If you have hemp seeds, they're also great to roll in hemp seeds. That will also give you a really great source of plant-based protein, fiber, omega-3s. Any way you can sneak nuts and seeds into your meals, your snacks, that's really gonna help with your energy, satiation, and like Stevie talked about a lot, you want to get all the micronutrients, macronutrients from as much from whole plant-based food sources as you can, but it's also important to balance it out with those comfort foods, with what your body is craving. I always find that I am in the best place mentally when I'm honoring my body's needs instead of running to the fridge the second I feel hunger come on. Which is one of the luxuries I've found with being able to work from home and go to school from home. You can really honor what your body needs and take the time to step back and see what's going to make me feel my best. What do I want? What do I need? Sometimes that's going to be a slice of cold pizza. Sometimes that's going to be a veggie burger on a salad with some sweet potatoes and avocado. Sometimes it's going to be a PB&J. But that really helps when you're honoring what you want and what you desire. So yeah, I'm gonna check on the burgers and I'll show you guys them. See how they're coming. I'm doing really good not eating the dough. I don't know if you've noticed, but this is a level of self-control I'm not really used to. Oh, yay, okay, perfect. So I'm not sure if this will do it justice, but they start to brown on the sides, and then that's when you're going to flip them, is when they're like a little golden brown, crispy. Use a spatula for that. And then you'll just bake them for another 20 minutes. They're nice and crispy. Probably see they've set more and they're nice and golden. Here, you know what? I'll just hold one up for you. Oh, yes, just like that. And they don't fall apart, which is great. All right, so those are gonna cook for another 20 minutes, and I'm gonna have one for dinner tonight, and I will share with you guys how that looks when it's done. I'm gonna keep rolling out the balls. I have 6 now. But yeah, that's it. As you can see, that didn't even take me, I did two recipes. It didn't even take me an hour. If you just set aside time, even once a week, to make some of your favorite meals, it can really help. You could double these recipes, you could triple them, have them for your family, have them for meal prep, and it can really take a lot of the stress out of cooking throughout the week, especially if you're busy with your kids, your family, if you're working, if you're in school. Just assigning a day to really focus on meal prepping, even if it's one meal, just for dinner, and it can really help, and it can improve the stress out of your week, because it takes off a priority or something to do. So that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm really interested to hear what you guys thought and how you like them. If you do make them, please let me know. Please tag me on Instagram. I have a lot of recipes like this on my Instagram. It is Mariana's Pantry. Feel free to give me a follow if you enjoyed this and want to follow along. I really value making quick, easy, healthy, nourishing recipes that everyone can enjoy. So, and yeah, that's it. I'm now going to bring it back over to Kaylee, and she's going to tell you about the rest of the Inner Strength Challenge series and the classes that we have coming up. So thank you guys. I had so much fun.